is one of the panelists. Another one is, so we're getting into the panel discussion. There was a slight change in the lineup. Ms. Sabrina Sultana, Ms. Sabrina Shaheed, who's the principal of Sir John Wilson and School, Earl is going to be one of the panelists. Professor Rao is going to be one of the panelists, and the panel is going to be moderated by none other than Mr. Shariful Islam, the founder of Bangladesh Brand Forum, and one of the persons most passionate about education, and he does all these wonderful programs, including these sort of innovation centers that he talks about in the 7 divisions, and I'm sure he has a fresh perspective on it. So to Sharif, Professor Rao, and Sabrina.
Yeah, it's a little daunting to sit between 2 very powerful females, and yeah, we'll try to do justice to that. Thank you so much. Thanks, Farhan. Thank you so much, Professor Rao. We just heard you speak on something, on a very important sort of journey, and so much of learning, and such an inspiring journey of Asian University of Women. Thank you so much. And then the fact that you are here to steer ahead the journey for the next phase. So in the panel, so we of course have Professor Rao, and also someone who I feel also is playing a very key role in preparing the future minds from a very early stage. An institution which has a very strong reputation, Sir John Wilson. So thank you, Sabrina, for joining.
Thank you for calling me here.
I'm sure you have got a little bit of context of the whole focus of women in leadership, a project which is designed by another inspiring female in Bangladesh, artist Nazia Andali Prima, 3 years back. And her vision has been, how do we help female reach their potential? And what, over the last 3 years, we have actually noticed that females where they have actually improved a lot, made a lot of progress. But at the same time, they, despite having the right skill set, they still cannot reach their potential. So they are at least 1 or 2 steps back from where they can reach. And while trying to delve into it, we found actually 2 broad components which were affecting that. One is the own journey, the self journey, the self-belief, self-confidence, which along with passion and hard work converts to a force that can actually face any barriers that a female can face. And that's basically the part that refers to owning of the fest. And the second component comes into the other external component, the family, the husband, the role of a male colleague or friend, the society narratives on women. All these influences the last step, and also the journey and the steps beyond. So today we'd like to sort of look at the core which shapes this owning part, because everyone goes through the almost in a certain group a same journey, but there are some people actually, one can rise up, some do not. What happens and how that's shaped up, and how do we, from an early stage and also moving forward to tertiary level education, we can look into this component and what can be done to make sure that actually women own up to their passion and are self-confidence, are driven and can pursue their passion. So I'll start off with Sabrina. Sabrina, you work with students who are both male and female, right. And also very important component, the parents.
Right.
So these are the 3 sort of the parents, the teachers, and the students. Within that space, do you notice anything when you look at male and female?
Oh, of course. Even though I work in a co-education school, you know, and there is, in the modern education system, there's no gender stratification. You know, it's not gender biased, but it still prevails that, you know, the female students and male students, they have, from the social perspective, I see a lot of, you know, gender biasness is there. I still get a lot of parents telling me that take my girl out of the football team because their skin is going to get dark, or, you know, they're just girls, they don't have to play so much and all of that. So it's still there. And also from the teacher's perspective, I sometimes see, and it's part of, teachers are also part of the society. And what they say is sometimes, oh, he's a boy and they're supposed to be like that. You know, well, they're a little bit naughty, they're destructive maybe, and girls are supposed to be quiet and submissive, and you know, that's the prototype. But even though we don't have gender biasness in our education system or anywhere else in the world, but you know, it's still the norm of the society that girls are going to do certain things and boys are going to do they're going to play certain roles. So that kind of motivates, and if it's implanted in them from a very young age, when they're coming to the kindergarten and getting introduced to their peer group, and they're having their role set up for them, you know. So it gets into their head, and they kind of think that, okay, this is what I can do, this is my limit, you know. So we are kind of setting a boundary around them. So I think that's what the schools need to do, break that boundary, let the girls, or even for male students, I would say, that, you know, there's no boundary of your achievements and you can do anything you want to, be anybody you want to be. So that's what I think school has a big role to play in it. But definitely, we have to work with the parent group. That's very, very important.
Professor, you have worked also in different parts of the world. Now, when you look into the subcontinent, we have a certain type of, actually, so we look at female and male in a certain perspective, and that's also, we were discussing the other day that a very big influence is our culture. So culture which has been driven by the stories, the movies, the novels which people read in early stage, the ads that they see, or the drama that they see. In all of these, females are portrayed in a certain manner. So it's always the romance, or even which the romantic novels people love reading, a certain type. So you are supposed to be very, very soft. You do not even, so we are just discussing before this session. Very interestingly, one of the speakers was saying, so a girl even has never learned to say even yes. So when they are proposed, they don't actually respond. They're very shy, and without this expression, you are supposed to know that actually that's a yes. So in this, so you are not supposed to express strongly. You are not supposed to say no, because that's unbecoming of a girl. So all this cultural component, yeah, these are changing. How much does it actually stay back? How much does it influence as compared to, let's say, in other parts of the world, what you have seen?
Yeah, I mean, culturally, you're absolutely right, and I can identify with everything you're saying. I grew up in South India, which is very traditional, compared with growing up in Delhi or Bombay. And I went, although I studied, my higher education was in Delhi University and JNU, which was much more radical, if you like. When I went to the UK in 1980s to do my PhD, I could never look at a man in his eyes, and I would always look down. And somebody commented that they felt something wrong with their shoes, or, you know, I was not focusing on the eye. And it required a lot of cultural change in terms of how we relate with people. And nowadays, I'm sure girls are a lot more confident. And we're talking about the 70s and 80s, you know, very different. But the cultural expectations still prevail. And there's nothing wrong with attributing certain roles which are designed for women. As one of our colleagues said, by birth, we are different. And there's nothing wrong. And some of the feminists here probably in the room will not like what I have to say, but there are certain roles which are designed for women. And there's grace in it, that we are closer to the children in child rearing. Certain things that a mother can do that a man can never do, or man can do that a woman can't do. So we accept that fundamental division of labor. But having said that, in a world where women are expected to work and they're equally rising as men are, I would say in the family, that's where the socialization begins. You have to have supporting parents when you're single. When you're married, it's very important to have a supportive husband who understands and allows you, gives you the freedom to navigate your realities. At the organizational level, I would say it's very important to have mentors for women. It's very, very important. Role models are very important because they make tremendous difference. And encouragement. Apart from all the policies of family-friendly policies, I don't think we in this country, not Bangladesh might have, but in India still they've not progressed in terms of providing for say nurseries and creches within every organization so that mothers can bring their children, and some practical steps, they're still way behind. Employment, equality, equal opportunity policies are still, I don't believe, are as embedded as in the West. So some of the organizational changes still needs to be embedded to overcome the institutional, political, social, cultural barriers. But having said that, our experience again at AUW, just going back, is there are parts of South Asia, particularly in Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, we find there are rich, affluent families. They don't want their daughters to go to a co-educational setting. And how do you break that? So while I'm not for segregation, don't get me wrong, I'm all for integration, but I think segregation still has a place in our society where it gives certain families an opportunity to send their children to a setting which will allow them to progress in life. Once they come out of AUW, they're going into a co-educational setting anyway, and they are perfectly adjusting to the challenges of that. But if there is demand, and if the culture still requires it, I'm not somebody who goes against the culture. There's a beauty in also maintaining the tradition and not fighting it at all times, as we fight nature.
No, but absolutely. I think in the other day, one of the very successful female professional was actually sharing a story where she comes from it was a gender-specific, so female schooling system. And she was saying, and then there was a sort of a competition, so they were working very closely for almost a month with the co-education girls. And they were saying, we were so different.
Absolutely.
So we were very confident, because we play football,
Yeah.
we don't, there is nothing that actually, there bars us, we are not compared, we do not have to face the challenge of what a boy is doing and so we do everything.
Actually, if you look at all the research studies, I hate being academic here, but if you look at some of the studies, they show that women who have actually got to the top have come from all female institutions because of the kind of confidence I'm seeing among the girls. When I see them on stage and performances, boy, I grew up in a co-educational setting. I did not have a fraction of that confidence, nor do I have it still. They grow in self-confidence, they grow in self-esteem, and the environment that these institutions provide is very conducive to growing strong leaders, for whatever it is, at the right level. But then they come out, and also they're breaking into fields which are male-dominated traditionally. So you have females, if you look at all the research, those women who got into STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, medicine, have come from all female institutions, the successful ones. So they're breaking those boundaries as well.
Interesting, very interesting finding. Just one point I would like to ask upon before I go to Sabrina. You have students who come from different countries and different cultures, different socioeconomic class also. Within that, is there anything that you have noticed? One is, and you have a common sort of curriculum and experience that you provide. Who are the ones who pick it up most? Is there any common attributes that you have seen which maybe a kind of correlation can be created with the past journey, past learning, past orientation, with how fast they can pick up, how courageous they become?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. There are two levels of testing which we apply to all students. And one is a basic written test in English which looks for competence in reading, learning, and comprehension. And we also have a basic maths test, very basic. This year I've introduced a grit test. Those who are familiar with Angela Duckworth in the US. Grit is really looking for attributes for us to resolve, your determination and your persuasion. So what we do is we do this testing. Everybody sits, doesn't matter who that is, 12th standard, 10th standard, they sit. And according to the scores, they are then slotted into undergraduate, access program, or pathways program, pre-access. But the real discriminating assessment comes in the form of interviews. In the interviewing, we look for 3 things. We give them scenarios, we give them examples, and problem solving, and we look at how they respond in terms of courage, in terms of empathy, in terms of outrage at injustice. So we ask them questions, we explore, because we believe these are the attributes that go to make an effective leader. And these attributes are better indicators than any test scores that come out in maths or English or whatever. I can't say that our testing scheme is 100% perfect, but if you look at some of the success stories, it must be working somewhere. There's always scope for improvement, and we're refining it every year. That's one. But talk of the mixed abilities, we have not streamed them as yet, but perhaps that's a way to do it. At the moment, it's mixed classes. So the very top, high caliber, if you like, students who are able to progress are feeling slightly frustrated that they are with students who are not at anywhere near their level. So while it's demoralizing to certain sections of the classroom, maybe that streaming is a way forward, which we're going to experiment next time. And the third is having a lot of students from the displaced communities, and I don't want to use the word Rohingyas, but from Myanmar, from Bangladesh, or from Syria. The real challenge is coming, and this is a social challenge, coming from students who are fee-paying students, because our model of 95% scholarship is not going to sustain itself going forward. So we've introduced a fee-paying section. And we have, for the first time, generated nearly 1 million out of 7 million turnover, which I'm very proud of. Why shouldn't we? Because other universities are taking it. I don't feel ashamed of that. As long as we are taking a substantial number of students coming from very poor backgrounds and giving them the support. There is still that in the initial phase, you'll find parents more than the daughters are worried about the mix. And they express some concerns, but after the first term, you find everybody in the same social space. So you have the very rich girls mixing with, very poor girls, and it's all working really well. There is that adjustment period, which we try and help through workshops, awareness, we work with them, and it's working well.
Do you find the grit component a little bit more stronger in someone who is coming from more disadvantaged spaces, or it can be?
We can't tell because it's the first year we are putting it. So the testing is, as we speak, is going on today.
What is your assumption? What is your hypothesis? It's purely your own personal experience.
I personally think that determination will probably be, in the kind of questions we've designed, will probably come out stronger among girls from relatively disadvantaged. Their determination and their desire for learning, looking at the track record of performance. I mean, I can name people like Rimu, who was, I don't know, anybody from BRAC will know, she was a senior policy advisor. She came with, she was a Grameen Bank, daughter of a Grameen Bank borrower. And she came with absolutely no wherewithal, and she's now on full scholarship at Oxford. And the determination that these girls have shown, which I feel those who've come, like my own boys, both are grown up, both are medics, they didn't have anything like this. They come with a silver spoon, so they take it for granted. The idea is give them an opportunity, and they never let go. They seize every bit of it.
Lovely, it's really great. That brings in a very, very important sort of perspective, which Sabrina, I'd like to focus on. When especially we talk about early stage students, very class 1 or even lower, the role of parents becomes absolutely paramount. And do you think the whole focus of, we discuss a lot, you can actually throw a better light on that. It's just getting a degree. Go through 8 sort of private tutor, get a CGPA of 5, or for your case. So the whole focus of the the knowledge, the grooming up, those get sidesteps. And one, I'll just give one reference. Mr. Salman Ismani was discussing one day with me, and he was saying that whenever we try to push something which we feel are important for overall grooming and how they basically groom for the future, parents are very worried. They said, oh, then he's going to perform less on the classes. How do you look at the, can you share a little bit of the parents' perspective which you feel needs to be changed?
Yes. When we started the school, our school is 23 years old right now. When we started the school, we came with a vision that, apart from getting good grades for the students, we will also concentrate on the holistic development of the students, and extracurricular activities will be, will be there and heavily. Initially, parents, most of the parents, I would say, they were not, I wouldn't say no, they were saying no to it, but they were worried about the grades because they wanted to see grades-based results, right? So we didn't have any first boy or second girl or first girl in the class. So it was only students competing with their own results. So they were very, very worried about that you don't have the first, what is the result? How did my child score than the other students? So that was a struggle that we had to face. We still do have that problem, but I think new generation parents who have come out of universities and parents now, I think they've got a shift of mind. They know that there's a great importance of a child growing up playing. They have to play, learn through play, and learning something has to be hands-on. So I see a shift of that, but I still think there's a mad, interest of sending children to the coaching centers because they're not going to get good grades. It's only once that they're going to sit for their O-levels, so they must get good grades. Even though if they don't know anything, they must get good grades. So it's there. Homework, all these things put a lot of pressure on the children. Getting good grades, doing the homeworks, and that's why you need to have teachers at home, or parents go crazy, sitting them down for 2-3 hours. And the funny part is, mothers do get blamed if the child is not getting a good grade.
That's why they stay around the school all the time.
A lot of mothers would come to us and say that, how am I going to show this result to the family? They're going to just blame it on me that I haven't paid enough attention. So there is so much of it still there in the families. And to one point, I was, last year, one of the mother came to me and said that, she was in tears and she was saying that, my family is just going to be very, very angry with me if my son doesn't have good results. How can you help me? I said, the only thing that I can do, that help your child in the school, of course. There's nothing wrong with you. You have raised a beautiful child. There's nothing wrong with you, but I can speak to your family. That's all I can do. So I think there's still a great influence of the social norms that a child must get good grade result, and it's the mother who's going to be doing that. And coming back to your question, grades and the social norms that you must have a good grades to go to good colleges, it's all there. It's not going to go away in one day. But what we have to do is make the students more confident about their abilities, make them sure that they don't have to always get good grades, but later part in their life they will be, they can make it well in their lives. And these are the things that we need to instill in them. And the positiveness. Nowadays, we see our children talking so negatively, and I think it's part of the parents' problem, because when we are talking to our friends or whatever, we lay our frustration in front of them, and that's how they're getting that negative side from us. And they're like sponges, and they're just absorbing all that negativity from us only. So that's what they're giving out in the world. When they're saying something, they're saying something negative because they're thinking, oh, it's all negative around us. So.
Thank you so much. I think this is such an important topic, and I love actually having these discussions. We can go on forever, but definitely would love to continue the dialogue beyond the stage. But just as a closing thoughts, if you can share one perspective to the audience and beyond, because these message will travel actually across this room through virtual platform. But also more importantly, what as a platform like WIL can do to, especially within the university, both male and female of course, but focusing a little bit on the WIL's vision for female students to make them more courageous, more confident, so that they really can play their role in their life and for society. So if you can share parting thoughts.
I can only reflect on my experience having come to AEW a year ago. I come from a very specialized education system in India, like we have in Bangladesh, which is very specialized, honors in economics and maths, and it set a trajectory for where I could see myself going with very little flexibility. What the liberal arts curriculum has shown is a kind of curriculum that provides for that breadth and depth of understanding, together with the critical thinking component and leadership development. I think that's very important, and I think our whole curriculum has to, we need to reflect. I say that for even in the UK system, where we have no scope for that kind of room, is very, very important to let the students immerse in thinking and questioning. And that produces a different kind of a graduate than somebody who's slaughtered with 16 courses in economics to come out with an economics degree, but no breadth of that education. And I think that starts within the university sector. There's something to be said for redesigning our curriculum, to ask ourselves our learning outcomes and our aims. What is it we are trying to achieve out of that, and work closely with that. I would stay with the content.
All right, thank you so much. Sabrina, again, the same thing from our side, from the WIL platform like WIL. What can it do to sort of working within the school system to sort of drive the whole agenda? You have been part of this, you know of the vision. Any thoughts on that?
WIL represents women in leadership, and if you see the schools, we have children over there, and they're the future leaders, right? So if WIL can give them a platform, like the teachers who are nurturing them, who are teaching them, if they get a platform over here to, clarify their understanding of leadership, I think that's going to help the children as well, because that's what they're going to deliver to the children.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks to both of you for being here and sharing your insights. It definitely helped us to have a better understanding at the education space, what's happening, and I'm sure we will continue to sort of engage with both of you moving forward. Thank you so much for listening to the session.
Thank you.